Attention human! The following video presentation will provide a summary of the universe's supreme beings. You will watch this video, and once you have finished, you will leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Failure to do so will result in extermination. Now we shall begin. Welcome to the best of Doctor Who, the Daleks!
The Daleks are synonymous with Doctor Who. They've been a part of the show from the very start, and since that first episode 55 years ago, they've reappeared more than any other monster. In all that time, Raymond Cusick's distinctive, timeless design has remained the same, with only minor changes. Even people who aren't fans of the show know what a Dalek is. They are truly iconic. As soon as the first instalments of the Daleks had gone out over the winter months of 1963 and 1964, Terry Nation and the Doctor Who production team knew they'd struck gold, so much so that further Dalek stories were commissioned almost immediately. The dastardly Pepper Potts were a hit with adults and children alike, with their not-so-subtle allusions to the Nazis, and their distinctive battle cry, "Exterminate!", which was mimicked in playgrounds across the country. Season 2 of Doctor Who ended up with 2 Dalek stories, the Dalek invasion of Earth and the Chase, but this was nothing compared to what was to come in Season 3, a 12-part epic preceded by the 1-part prologue Mission to the Unknown, in the form of the infamous The Daleks' Master Plan. Regrettably, the majority of this story, as well as the Daleks' 2 appearances in the Second Doctor's era, are missing from the BBC archives. The next Dalek story, The Power of the Daleks, is notable for being the first to not be written by Terry Nation, the Daleks' creator, but instead by David Whittaker, and also the first to be titled The Something of the Daleks, a format used for all the subsequent Dalek stories of the classic era, and a handful of newer stories too. Admittedly, it's a somewhat lazy formula, often with questionable results. To this day, I'm not quite sure what Resurrection of the Daleks has to do with resurrection, what Revelation of the Daleks has to do with revelation, and as good as it is, what Remembrance of the Daleks has to do with remembrance. On the other hand, however, there are some classic titles like Day of the Daleks, Victory of the Daleks, Asylum of the Daleks, and perhaps the best of all, Genesis of the Daleks. The highly acclaimed Genesis went right back to the beginning to show us how the Daleks came about, and also to introduce us to their creator, Davros. Arguably, it's the most popular Dalek story of all time, encapsulating everything that's so effective about the creatures. It forces the Doctor to reconsider his relationship with the Daleks, and whether or not he has the right to avert their genesis. So influential is this story that it inspired a sequel 40 years later, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, which riffed on similar themes. It's somewhat disappointing then that the remaining classic-era Dalek stories tended to use the Daleks as background fodder, presenting them as subordinates to Davros. That said, the trilogy of serials broadcast in the 80s, Resurrection, Revelation and Remembrance, made an invaluable contribution to the show's mythology, introducing the idea of a Dalek civil war between 2 factions. The Imperials, who are loyal to Davros, and the Renegades, a breakaway group led by the Supreme Dalek. This plot thread came to a head in Remembrance when the 2 Dalek factions came to Earth, seeking the Hand of Omega, using Shoreditch as the backdrop for their conflict. It's another fan-favourite Dalek story, with some particularly exciting battle scenes. As revealed when Doctor Who returned in 2005, there was an even greater event in the Daleks' history that took place between the end of the classic series and the start of the new. The Time War. Essentially, this was a plot device used to bring the Daleks back into the show without the hassle of explaining past continuity, but it did so in a way that respected what had gone before and reaffirmed the Daleks as the Doctor's greatest enemies. Like the Doctor, The Daleks featured in the new series are survivors of the Time War, remnants of their former glory days. Series 1's Dalek attempts something that had never been done in the show's history before. It restricts the story to a single Dalek, managing to make it just as terrifying as a whole army of the creatures. This solves the problem of the Daleks being reduced to fodder. This Dalek becomes a character in its own right, even displaying signs of emotion. It set the trend for subsequent stories, like Into the Dalek or Resolution, which also focused the action on just one Dalek. But equally, there are stories such as Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways, and The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, which show the Daleks in full force, too. Often in the new series, the Daleks are presented as scavengers, hell-bent on survival. This is the main aim of the Cult of Skaro, an initiative devised by the Dalek Emperor, tasked with finding new ways to keep the Daleks going, and to ensure they don't die out for good. Desperate measures force the cult's leader, Dalek Sec, to combine himself with a human in Daleks in Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, in an attempt to create a race of Dalek-human hybrids. In Victory of the Daleks, it's the impulse to survive that leads the last few Bronze Daleks to locate a progenitor device in order to create a new Dalek paradigm. Stephen Moffat's Dalek stories tended to be slightly more psychological in tone, focusing on the morality of the Doctor and the Daleks. Into the Dalek introduces Rusty, a good Dalek, and riffs on the line, "You would make a good Dalek" from Series 1's Dalek, suggesting that the Doctor has more in common with his worst enemy than he might first think, especially this grumpier, more acerbic incarnation. It's an idea that's returned to in the Series 9 opener, which explores the relationship between the Doctor and Davros more fully than any other story. Faced with the choice of whether or not to save a younger version of Davros, ultimately the Doctor decides to show mercy to his enemy, in the hope that it will be reciprocated. Moffat also exploited the Daleks' potential for body horror on a number of occasions, introducing the idea of Dalek puppets in Asylum of the Daleks, human corpses reanimated by nanogenes. A full conversion is granted to Oswin, who is enclosed inside a Dalek casing, in a style similar to that used by the Cybermen to ensnare their victims. This idea is developed in the Series 9 opener, which, controversially, suggests that it's the Dalek casing, rather than the mutant inside, that makes a Dalek hateful. I'll leave you to decide what you think about this, but personally, I think it's a rather neat idea. The Chibnall era has seen only one Dalek story so far, Resolution. It was in many ways a return to form for the creatures, focusing again on a single Dalek, and developing the idea of a Dalek being able to use a human as its puppet much further, to gruesome effect. The basic outline of Raymond Cusick's Dalek design has remained largely unchanged since 1963, though it has been revised slightly in the years since. Most of these changes have been purely aesthetic, with different Daleks sporting different colour schemes. The original Dalek props were silver, with bright blue domes and a black base. However, because the first Dalek stories were broadcast in black and white, these colours weren't seen on TV. In fact, silver and blue were chosen with this in mind, to create a clear contrast between the skirt and dome sections that would show up on monochrome cameras. In their second story, The Dalek Invasion of Earth, the Daleks sported bigger bases and had discs on their back to explain how it was possible for them to move about on Earth, as they had previously required static electricity channeled through their bases from the city floor on Skaro to do this. In later stories, however, these changes were abandoned. We also saw the first Emperor Dalek in the second Doctor story, The Evil of the Daleks. When the Daleks appeared in colour for the first time on television in Day of the Daleks after a 5-year absence, a new gunmetal grey colour scheme was chosen. This became the norm for subsequent classic era stories, such as Genesis, the slightly lighter greys seen in Destiny of the Daleks, and the return to the darker greys and blacks for the Renegade Daleks seen in Resurrection, Revelation, and Remembrance. Meanwhile, the Imperial Daleks sported a contrasting, regal white and gold colour scheme. Special Dalek designs in the classic era include the gold and black Supreme seen in Day of the Daleks, the bigger black and gold Supreme introduced at the end of Planet of the Daleks, and the impressive tank-like special weapons Dalek used in Remembrance. For the 2005 revival, the Dalek design was given a brief overhaul, with the proportions revised and a bronze colour scheme introduced. This design has appeared throughout the revived era and was last seen in Twice Upon a Time. Variants include a new Emperor Dalek revealed in the Series 1 finale, the black Dalek Sec seen in the 10th Doctor's era, and the red and gold Supreme Dalek first seen in the Series 4 finale and again in the Series 9 opener. A bulkier, more colourful design was attempted in Victory of the Daleks, but barely seen again after this due to the controversy it created. A revised, and in my opinion much more effective, metallic colour scheme was used on these props when they cropped up again in Asylum of the Daleks, their last on-screen appearance to date. For the most recent Dalek story, Resolution, a special one-off Dalek design was created. This Dalek was the first in Doctor Who history to require no human operator inside the casing. Instead, it was controlled remotely. For more information on Dalek designs, the weekly Dalek series on the website Hero Collector provides a comprehensive guide, as well as the website Dalek 63-88, which has a detailed history of all the Dalek props used over the years. So, what do you love about the Daleks? What are your favourite Dalek episodes and your favourite Dalek designs? Be sure to post your thoughts in the comments section below. And as the Daleks said at the start of this video, be sure to subscribe too, if you haven't already. I really hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the Best of Doctor Who. I plan to bring you many more in the future. In the meantime, if you haven't watched all of the original run, which was released last summer, feel free to go and check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon for some more new Doctor Who videos.